Well, John.
Hello, Oliver.
And today we're going to talk about the Spire or the Spike, that thing, massive 400-foot monstrosity in O'Connell Street.
Well, we're talking about statues, shall we say. There are lovely statues throughout the country. And they're often give an indication of the person that was important in that town. I'll give you one example. Listowel in the famous kingdom of Kerry, where we had the famous liberator Daniel O'Connell and various other marvellous people come from that county. Not least the nuns in Listowel, the Sisters of Mercy, and there's a statue for them in the town in front of the church, in appreciation for their time there and the education that they provided for the people of that town. And there's something else there too that I admired. It's the statue of John B. Keane, the writer there, and he was a humorous writer. He wrote a couple of comedies. Now, he wrote a couple of serious ones as well that put the hair on your head standing. The Field was one that I wasn't that happy on. I'd like to have a story with a bit of humour. Like Big Maggie was a good one. And she was, I think she was she had a couple of priests she was the cook or whatever it was, or the person there. And that was a marvellous, humorous stage play, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And John B himself had a sense of humour as well, a quirky sense of humour, and which was admirable. So I'm just giving an example of statues. They represent something that uplifts the town and appreciation for the people that contributed in that town. And not least in other towns, Boyle, County Roscommon, where I grew up, there's a clock up in what they call the Crescent, and then there's a clock, I think there's a statue on it. But there's also mention of the people that contributed and helped that town. One, Jerry Dodd, he was a councillor, or a town councillor or something like that. And he's mentioned there, and a few other ones. And he was where we used to do our shopping and grocery, and we used to get great presents at Christmas. So I'm mentioning statues. Now, we come along to the capital city. Nelson's Pillar was in O'Connell Street, and the IRA blew that up one time in the 60s or 70s or something. And then the government finished it off and knocked it down, and then I think a big concrete thing fell from the GPO, and lucky enough there was nobody underneath that would have been squashed as a result of all them explosions. Now, it was Nelson Pillar was a concrete structure, and you could walk up to the top and see the city, which was not bad. Now, regretfully, there was one or two. There was a railing, but one or two committed suicide years back, jumping over.
No, I never heard of that.
Oh no, well you see, there's a lot of things one doesn't hear of because the media is so concerned about supporting this dreadful government that we had there for the last 5 or 6 years with the support of Fianna Fáil. They don't talk about these things, but the ideal way then to do was to try and improve the situation in O'Connell Street where Nelson Pillar was. It was a concrete structure. Concrete is can be there's quarries in this country, and now this is easily erected, and to have expertise in that as we know. And so take your cue from the continent, the Eiffel Tower. There's lifts going up there, and there's restaurants. Now there's something they're open again, but it's this social distance business. So I presume if you're sitting over there, the waiter will have a little pulley and it'll go grab to you, and he'll keep away from you. So I just want to give you the sickness to do it, but because I mean, I like a person to leave something there, and that has had some quid in it.
You'll need a rope for your dinner now, okay? Just swing it across the room.
And if you have somebody sitting with you, don't be way off down there, so you'll have to shoot. Maybe have a megaphone. That's hard, because they're hard to hear, and they never hear you unless we're sitting beside you. And anyways, we're talking about statues. So if you were a councillor in Dublin and had travelled beyond where you were a councillor from, Suppose they visited the continent, because they often had expenses and they could visit the continent, and you'd inquire about what's going on there and what would be useful. Because to my way of thinking, O'Connell Street is the premier street in the country, supposed to be, or was. Now I say he was historical, it's not now, I'm afraid. So what did the councillors come up with?
What did you call it?
What do you think did they have a nightmare? Or what was wrong with them? They put some kind of a steel business, which it doesn't we don't produce steel in this country.
Yeah.
So they must have had to import it. They love importing things, don't they? A steel structure that had frightened people. If they had a nightmare, that's what they'd see.
I just think, it's not a bad looking structure, okay, but I think it should be down the Docklands. It should be, it suits a more modern city. So the new Docklands down by the docks where all the Googles are and the Facebooks.
Maybe so, but I still think a monument should represent something applicable to the people in the city.
Yeah.
That would be common sense. Now, myself, I would have thought some of the patriots. Padraig Pearse, I'm very impressed with, always was. I visited a cottage over in Connemara. He gets a very bad press from the dreadful media that were shadowing in this country. But he was a real Irishman and had great belief in the culture of the country, which has been denigrated and belittled by far too many, in my opinion. But he wasn't one of them. And he had a cottage over in Connemara, which now is a historical place, and I visited it. It's a great experience to sort of see the sort of quality of a man that he was. That was the man to build it to build a concrete structure with a restaurant and the famous Patrick Pearse. Give him recognition for what he did and the fact that he had to sacrifice his life being executed. If it wasn't for them, we'd have no freedom. They were the ones that got it. Now, and a concrete structure with a restaurant and perhaps a lift up and all these features could be done, but what did they do? They put a steel structure that has no purpose whatsoever. It reminds me of a carved bunker. But what drew me attention to it was that on the Lyric FM, there was the culture file, they have a thing called culture file, and this one was on it. I can't think of her name, Andrew Galler or something. Andrew Galler, she might have been well known in some way. But in any event, she was on it, and she was going down O'Connell Street, and she seemed to like the Spire, and seemed to denigrate the statues. Like Daniel O'Connell is there. Now, if I was walking down O'Connell Street and with the knowledge I have of it down the years, I'd regard it as practically a no-go area compared to what it was. It was a wide premier street in the country. People often admired coming to it. I saw many visitors from overseas, from the US and all the rest of it, enjoying the preamble down the tree-lined street, and there was lovely fountain here and there, and I think there was one flowers on O'Connell Bridge. It was beautiful, and that spire, in my opinion, has made the city despicable and sad. The Lewis is going down, footpaths have been widened. Now you can't drive down a car down that premier street. I don't think there's any street in the world with a premier street like what O'Connell Street was that has been so destroyed.
Well, you know what? There's been roadworks in O'Connell Street for 30 years. Because I can tell you, right, that I started working in O'Connell Street, okay, in a place in O'Connell Street, when I was 17, right? And I think it's only about maybe 3 or 4 years ago that finally the roadwork stopped. And what was happening was you had the gas company would dig it up, then the ESB would dig it up, And then a couple of times they dug up the whole centre of it. Then they put down the Anna Livia. Then they took up the Anna Livia. Then they put down the spike. And I'm sure at some stage the spike
Well, I
will
think like
come out there
when they
again.
had the fountains there, we have such a dreadful media in this country, so insulting to what would be usually an asset in any city, which was fountains and a kind of a fountain. They called it some ridiculous insulting name like the floozy and the jacuzzi or something.
The Anna Livia.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
this type of
Nonsense.
vulgarity that they have, and that they're where these journalists come from or why they're employed, I'll never know, because they have nothing good to say about anything, only something about something that's bad.
Who was Anna Livia? Do you know? I don't actually know much about her.
Well,
Was
now I
she
probably
wasn't-
do, but just now,
Yeah, sorry.
I wouldn't have gone
Yeah.
into it now to research it. I would probably a bit of time I'm finished at this.
I think we covered it before, and we done some research on her, and you knew the answer to it at the time.
Oh, yeah,
You gave me something about it. That's why I asked you again. Trying to remember myself as what it was, but we can't remember.
And of course, don't forget the famous song Molly Malone, which is symptomatic with Dublin, in Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty. That was the song. Could you say that about it now, in Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, and all the rest of it? Could you preamble down O'Connell Street in a kind of and realise that you know you're in Dublin? I don't think you could, because there's nothing there to sort of remind you of it, and that's Spike. So this is the strange thing with this culture fire, that this lady saw fit to sort of see something in that that I think maybe her age, young, did not have any knowledge of history or knowledge of something what's beautiful. They mustn't have, because nobody in the right mind would consider that kind of anybody's even half tolerable. It should be taken down and a proper concrete structure put up that would have a restaurant, and to bring back O'Connell Street to the way it was. Perhaps stop the Lewis going up and down it, which has interfered with the city as well. Widen the street and have a tree line. They took down trees as well. The city, the Premier Street said that street has gone down dreadful to compare. I remember it when I was growing up. It was a lovely city.
Well, I made an observation, about the city centre. There was a time, right, when you'd look at graffiti in Dublin City and you'd frown upon it, right? And the thing about it now is, right, things look so bad. The city looks so terrible that some people actually like the graffiti now, okay? And then, of course, you got all the McDonald's and you got all the Burger Kings, and they don't look as bad now because you have the graffiti beside it. So it's a complete mess.
Of course it is, but the trouble is, you see, all these places like that you just mentioned, when you're in a city like on a main street like the main Premier Street or O'Connell Street, named after the famous liberator, for goodness sake, you want to have Irish places to eat. The same as when you go to France. There's McDonald's somewhere and that, but there's a hell of a lot of along the Champs-Élysées restaurants applicable to France. The idea that they would do what they did here in Dublin, in O'Connell Street, would be unthinkable.
Yeah.
The lovely boulevards, because that was designed by Napoleon. Now, he did a lot of bad things in his time as regards interfering with citizens in other countries. You should just look after your own miserable country. But the lovely wide boulevards going up to the what they call the Place de l'Étoile, a lovely place. But I couldn't see them interfering with the Champs-Élysées, which is the Premier Street, from the Eiffel Tower up to the Place de l'Étoile, and then all these boulevards, including one called Boulevard McMahon, a famous Irish general that was in the French army, and a big boulevard named after him. So these are there's a Rue Irlandais there too. So they appreciate that this is what visitors go to France for. How many visitors are we going to be attracting to visit O'Connell Street in Dublin? Is there nothing there that they can kind of? There is nothing. Cleary's is closed, and Talbot Street has gone so far down compared to what it was.
I think there's talk about opening Cleary's. If I'm right, it's going to be called Cleary's Quarter. It's going to be a rooftop restaurant. So they're making some progress there, but it's not owned
but
by
it's so
Irish
long
people.
closed that the like of what me and people that would have remembered the marvelous city that it was. It's too little, too late.
Yeah.
If they've done what they've done and put that carbuncle, it has lowered the whole city, and everything has gone along with that ugly monstrosity. And anybody that likes it, they want their head examined in my book. It's just a dreadful looking sight. And I just actually avoid Con Street now like the plague. If I try not to go on but if you go on a bus, you have to go down a Con Street. But I try not to look around. I go down as far as bus hours and try and go over the bridge and not go near it, because it's just so awful to compare to what I remember it. It was a beautiful city, Con Street was as good as any wide street in Europe. Hey, now.
Yeah, because I mean, you have one building that's I think it's beside the Carlton Cinema, and it's completely gone. They're supposed to build a shopping centre there with an underground, kind of a laneway into the Ilex Centre. I think it is. Some developers talking about building. If you look at Parnell Square, it's just a complete mess, and if you look at Abbey Street, it's awful altogether.
Correct. The whole thing is just actually so undeveloped, and I'm feeling the spike. I call it a spike because that's about the only thing you could describe it as, a spike, a steel spike. Completely, it doesn't represent anything whatsoever in the country, the same as the statues we're talking about down in the Stone, down in Boyle, and various other towns where there's statues, the people that have contributed to that town by way of education, like the nuns, the Mercy Nuns, or the Presentation Brothers, or some of these ones. This is what people identify with. Do you think in some of these towns that they built something like what's in Con Street, that people would be coming to look at it? They'd run a mile from it.
Mm-hmm.
So the councillors are responsible for that in Dublin, and yet people voted for them. So what was wrong with them? I mean, they should have been hounded out of the city altogether and never darken any democratic institution ever again, and should be held to account for it. But the media, of course, that insulted everything that was good, deserve what they get. And of course, the Irish Independent, which was in a big building in Middle Abbey Street, now I don't know where they are.
They're down the other side of Abbey Street now. Yeah, they actually have a nice building now.
No, I don't think they have.
What they do?
They're down Talbot Street.
Talbot Street. Oh, sorry, Talbot Street. Yes, I stand corrected.
Yeah. Oh, they're not in Middle Abbey Street.
You don't miss much, Sean Malone.
Well, no, but you see, but being an observant individual all my life, and enjoying the sort of things that I used to enjoy, and that when I go abroad I enjoy as well. For example, when we were in Spain and near Alicante in a place called Torrevieja, there was what they call a spike there, and it was on way off up. It wasn't in any main thoroughfare, but it was a way off up, and it was often a guide to say, oh, there's the spike, then it must be up this way. And when you got there, you got bearings. But it was in the roundabout. So it was more a burn. It wouldn't be as high as the one the monstrosity in Con Street, but it was high enough and it could be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I often used to use it as a guide. And say, which way do we get back to so and so? Oh, there's the spike. But I never thought I'd see one on Con Street. There's no other town that I know of that has anything like it.
I would imagine it costs a lot of money.
Well, apparently some kind of individual in England got
the contract,
his design with it, and of course it all had to be imported, and I think it costed a fortune.
And what's it made? Is it aluminium? It looks aluminium.
I don't know what it. I thought it was steel, but apparently, don't say this. I think that has to be cleaned all the time.
That's right, it does.
It would go rusty.
Yeah.
But the best thing they could do. What does it cost? We don't hear that. This media that seems to sort of question all sorts of things that's good.
I think, if you look at, we go back to the Anna Olivia for a second because there's an important thing here. If you look at the Anna Olivia, right, what happened there was Michael Smurfit donated it to the city, and he spent it cost £1 million at the time, right? The Anna Olivia.
That's the fountains.
For the big Anna Olivia, the fountain, yes, that cost £1 million, right? And they took it away and they chucked it up there across. It's now the Anna Olivia is now up outside the little tiny park beside Houston Station. It's in there in a little pond, right? But I think it sets a terrible precedent for any business person because you can donate £1 million statue and they'll dig it up a couple of years later and chuck it out.
That's now, that £1 million when that was done would be about 20 million now, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, it wouldn't. I don't know what it would be. But
that was a lot of years ago.
Well, you're talking about, like, the Anna Olivia was built around 1987.
Well, there you are.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of money now.
Yeah, of course it would. Because 1987, let me see, I forget what was there, but it wasn't anything like that you think you were on pauper's wages. And tax of the hilt at the same time, 1987. Now, would you see, there you are. I mean, what was wrong with it? There was nothing wrong with it. But it's just pathetic to see that what was beautiful was taken up in the media. The independent and those rags that have no beauty in their soul. And this is what I find dreadful, that the city is so destroyed.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you very much, Oliver.